Chapter 41, The Legion and the Sochus. During the formation of the defenses alongside placing the power carefully into the Sochus' very own vault which can go in and out of the ground. Zami tries to have a go with his cubes, possibly adding to the defenses, but he continues to struggle, something with Amiku watches. Even Arvin is watching this too, feeling like he is losing a mate, getting replaced by power. One Socha goes up to Zami. And these Sochus are some of the best energy experts in the universe, so the Socha teaches Zami even more tips for how to control the cubes and other tricks. Even using your inner strength will help too, and it works far better for Zami, being able to reform a wrist blaster. The Socha then goes on to explain that most forms of energy can instantly connect to the mind, even if there can be rejections like bodily harm, making a user able to use any form of power even if there are more complicated tricks to learn. Not to mention if provided a trace of Amiku's power which Zami attempts to store in a wrist blaster that is attached to the back of the suit, then the suit should absorb the damage of the power rejection. Zami can also possess a powerful form of lightning, does give Zami a mild advantage as it can be an addition to the cube abilities or can quicken certain methods such as speeding up a machine. Even Zami as he spawns cubes decides to make them blue instead of the average jade green color, just to add to the experimentation. Not only does this bother Arvin but it also bothers Amiku more, worrying that will be outdone by Zami, which gets him into a certain mood. On top of that, Amiku has been getting funny looks from the Sochus, considering how the Graditis and the Sochus used to clash from time to time, also wondered how Amiku survived where the Sochus thought all the other Graditis were extinct. The old Sochus remember the event and the younger ones are familiar via the stories told to them. Before Amiku makes his way to the vault of the Sochus once he finishes placing some defenses as he makes multiple hands out of cubes, Pod, Opusnost and Arvin have a small chat. Opusnost and Arvin compared their abilities considering their abilities come from the life force. Opusnost does get slightly jealous of Arvin for having more abilities than him as Opusnost always likes to find different ways to fight foes. He does however have more solid abilities which he can maintain for the long run, while Arvin has multiple temporary abilities, but even then Opusnost starts to make connections he never really made, making him a tad more sentimental. Even Pod and Opusnost do get on more thanks to Arvin, enabling them to get on as they make the defenses, with Opusnost listening to Pod. Opusnost then asks about Pod's abilities, and Pod shares that he has the powers of fire, ice and water, which grabs the attention of another Socha as this form of power seems familiar. Opusnost thought of it as cool, very abstract yet grand in scale and witnessed instances of it during the fight on Nahashtu. Pod explains that he is glad to have this power as it would overcome Mechajor. Opusnost wonders who Mechajor is, and after explaining, Opusnost is intrigued to battle him. Opusnost shares that, unlike others, he wants a one-on-one with Xyanthor, thinking of himself as powerful enough. Pod however states that while confidence is good, teamwork is also important. There have been Orpheon and Ozona who required teamwork, and so after explaining their difficulty, Opusnost pretends to act hard but realizes that Opusnost there might be enemies that won't always fear him, maybe Amiku has misled him. Regardless, Arvin is glad to see Pod and Opusnost get on, adding to friendships which is one thing in the past that has not gone. Afterwards, another Socha comes about to help the three of them with the defenses. As that Socha also was listening to what kind of abilities they have, the Socha provides some advice which Pod, Opusnost and Arvin practice in between forming the defenses, extra concentration, more inner strength and letting their power flow through then more so can enable them all to reach feats they have never reached. For instance, Pod can use his power to form a giant version of himself, made out of water etc. Opusnost can use his temporary invincibility to intake energy from a power source and Arvin can fully energize himself at a point where he becomes temporarily invincible while also being able to use multiple evolution abilities at once, making them all thankful towards the Socha. However, Slitherark and the upgraded Stonos are nearly there, putting off the progress of the Legion, and the Legion is spooked to see Slitherark for the first time. Amiku tries to rush the situation, and as a result, one of the Sochus dies because a briefcase that was being placed in the vault breaks from the heated ground, and Ozona's power leaks and rips a Socha apart. Even Slitherark tries to take the chance to tell one of Xyanthor's allies via the communication spell that Ozona's powers are around. about to be placed within the vault of the Sochus. This adds to the chances Ozona's power can be fetched in the future, but he is starting to get attacked by the Legion's projectiles, delaying the chance of Slitherark telling Xyanthor about something this important. The Sochus are not impressed with Amiku, and Nicole gives Amiku a good telling off, and she considers getting Amiku away from the team for behaving like this. This trouble starts to make the Sochus hostile, but Amiku demands another chance. And Nicole nearly solidifies her decision until Slitherark and most of his army come about. And so the Legion mainly fights while some of the Sochus continue to place the energy in the vault, giving them time. It's a tense battle. The Legion, Duo and Sochus perform all sorts of to take down either Slitherark or the upgraded Stonos. As Slitherark tries to fight Pod and others, Slitherark continues to try and perform the communication spell to try and tell Xyanthor about the fact that after seeing Forza still being transported into the safe, but continues to fail from the incoming fire and lack of cover. Regarding those who are fighting the upgraded Stonos, thanks to the advice of the Sochus, Zami can perform all sorts of moves when mixing his lightning and cube abilities, which enables him to become more independent while maintaining some teamwork. If anything, Zami starts to get a tiny bit too cocky as he has gained more power. Zami performs many tricks such as summoning cubes which all connect via lightning, enabling him to zap multiple upgraded Stonos. Zami even summons a simple cube for Nicole to gain some temporary high ground away from the upgraded Stonos. This enables her to shoot at multiple upgraded Stonos. Even Zami quickly summons a temporary gadget in front of Nicole's gun which enables her to shoot 3 beams at once, surprising her, but she liked that 3-way shot. But as Zami shows off, this worries Amiku more to the point where he takes his anger against the upgraded Stonos, not cooperating with anyone, using his cubes to crush multiple upgraded Stonos, crushing them in many different ways, while also forming cubes to hit and push multiple Stonos at once too. The Sochus, on the other hand, have all sorts of tricks up their sleeves, despite not having any sleeves, similar tricks to when they were part of the elemental wave war. For instance, they throw lava balls everywhere, and this is the kind of race in which despite their teamwork are all strong on their own, performing other moves like swinging their staffs at the upgraded Stonos, making them get whacked away far. Not to mention these Sochus can manipulate lava, making them rise or form lava rivers for the upgraded Stonos to fall into to roast them, making the lava a useful trap. After all, this is a flexible world. They can manipulate the lava in any way they like without causing any environmental problems. That is how barren the world is. There have been a couple of cases where they help the Legion, such as throwing upgraded Stonos towards Zami for him to zap and summoning lava around Nicole to give her fewer targets to fire at. And then, there is the main boss, Slitherark, who is fighting Pod, Opusnost, and Arvin all at once. Even in one case, Slitherark nearly killed Arvin. This makes Pod defensive, even Opusnost too, making Pod and Opusnost angry towards Slitherark more so, and so they work together with a clever approach while using their abilities with the help of the Sochus advice. Opusnost maintains his temporary invincibility at a point where he manages to intake any of Slitherark's fire-like abilities, absorbing the energy instead of trying to reflect, which is tricky to do after his temporary invincibility normally helps reduce hard physical hits towards him. But it does help him continue within the fight. Arvin charges towards Slitherark while high on life force energy, which he aims towards Slitherark's claw-like hand, breaking the sharp long nails off them, and Pod attempts what he has learnt from the Sochus too. And so after getting hit back hard by Slitherark, Pod attempts to form a body around him, made up of fire, ice and water, and uses it to power against Slitherark, trapping Slitherark within fire, ice and water for a long time, adding to the damage, impressing Arvin and Opusnost. And with Slitherark slamming towards the ground, Opusnost jabs his blades around Slitherark's legs. Afterwards, Arvin evolves both his mouth and claws to go for Slitherark's head, and Pod drives his trident through Slitherark's chest, finishing him off. The rest of the fight starts to round up as Zami, Nicole, the Sochus and Amiku, despite being more independent fighters, work as a team to finish off the remaining upgraded Stonos around the planet. Amiku defends Nicole by placing cubes around her so that no attacks from the upgraded Stonos come to Nicole, making Nicole more forgiving towards Amiku. Amiku even provides platforms of Zami so that Zami can fire lightning below, finishing off the whole fight. with the Sochus even using Zamis lightning to redirect it towards the rest of the upgraded Stonos. Even the lava blobs that are thrown around by the Sochus have lightning within them, added by Zami, to make them more powerful, and able to take down entire groups. As the fight ends, Nicole also sees that Amiku tried his best and so decides to keep Amiku where he's at despite her doubts. Before the Legion leaves, they do add to the rest of the defenses, but the Sochus not only thank the Legion for defending them, this also means some forgiveness after earlier. But before the Legion goes, they would like to share a piece of information with the Legion considering how important the kind of energy is. It has been 2 hours since the storm was mentioned to the Legion, so they still have nearly a day's worth of hours left before they get to the storm. The storm they only need to shut down and counter any attacks depending on what kind of storm it is. Before Slytherak died, he was hoping to share the information that the Sochus have Ozona's power. But he couldn't get his communication to spell up to contact Xyanthor, making Forza remain a mystery. And now he has gone, his body is thrown into the Sochus lava, getting rid of any trace of him, even getting rid of the ship by dismantling it. What is this piece of information? What made the ultimate form of energy that Vata absorbed 100 years ago? Well, it turns out that the life force, Ozona's power, Hermota, and the power in Pod's trident are the eternal elements. These are the most powerful forms of energy in the universe, and these are what make up most of the universe. Each element not only has its proper name, but they embody various aspects of the universe and even used to be living beings that guarded the universe before new races started to get inspired by them, and before the elements were converted into forms of energy. Not to mention every ability that all races have comes from the elements to some degree. The life force, also known as Livinga, is what generated every life form, plant and spirit, also tied to healing, evolution, and growth. Ozona's power is called Forza. It mainly possesses air-like qualities like wind, air, weather, tornadoes, lightning, gravity, and even force fields, and extra control of air can result in telekinesis. Hermota is the cube element which was stated earlier, not only every type of material but even technology. Finally, Pod has Viber, embodying fire, ice and water, even being able to mix them, part of every trait of temperature. While the Sochus do explain that while we do share element abilities, possessing the elements themselves is often unwise. After seeing Pod in action, he seems to use his power wisely, making the Sochus warm up to the Legion more, considering that the Legion hasn't become tempted to keep the elements too. Not only that, but every element can be mixed in various ways just like in the real world, such as bridges over water or birds using the wind to fly, meaning that every ability all these races have would have come from the elements in one way or another. This is why Xyanthor is after all these special forms of energy, and as the most powerful race, he can embody them all despite needing the amulet and energy machine, and merging all the elements results in the ultimate universe-forming power. At first, the abilities have some limits. But getting all the elements and using the machine will enable more complex abilities like healing and life generation. The Legion is all caught up and starts to see more significance for why these elements need to be more protected, and even remain separated. So they are off, hoping to protect Hermota once they come across it. Before leaving the Sochus, Nicole has a small thought where she thought she could at least make one of the Sochus a part of the Legion, but after seeing how capable her team is so far, plus worried about trying to manage a whole heap of members, she decides that the Sochus are already protecting something important. Even Opusnost makes a joke to Nicole about how she will ask for another ally, and Nicole states not this time, she needs to make more sensible decisions. Meaning not take allies who are protecting something important.